the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, ably represented by our own there, the Vice President, His Excellency Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON, the Senate President, His Excellency Distinguished Senator Godswill Akpabio, GCON, represented by Senator Ahmed Lawan, the Deputy Secretary General, United Nations, Hajia Amina J. Mohammed, GCON, distinguished members of the National Assembly here present, Your Excellencies, Executive Governors and their representatives, the Honorable Minister of State Defense, members of the Federal Executive Council, Chiefs of Defense Staff and Defense Forces from Africa, my brothers, Service Chiefs and Inspector General of Police, the Chairperson of African Union, the ECOWAS Chairman, heads of security agencies and parastatals, former Chiefs of Defense Staff and Service Chiefs, heads of corporate organizations, heads of military establishments, captains of industry, very senior military and paramilitary officers, both serving and retired, members of the summit, members of diplomatic corps, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. It is with immense honor and great pleasure that I welcome you all to Abuja, the heart of Nigeria, for this historic inaugural African Chiefs of Defense Staff Summit on this very wonderful day, the 25th of August, 2025. On behalf of the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, and the good people of this great nation, I extend our warmest akwaba, bienvenue, and as we say in Nigeria, Ekabo, Ndeu, Barka Dezua, and a warm welcome to our beloved country. Your presence here is a powerful testament to our shared commitment to a more peaceful and secure Africa. Distinguished Chiefs of Defense Staff, ladies and gentlemen, today we gather at a critical juncture in our continent's history. Africa stands on the edge of unprecedented opportunity, driven by a vibrant youth population, vast resources, and a spirit of innovation. Yet, this promise is challenged by a complex and evolving spectrum of security threats. From the scourge of violent extremism and terrorism to the menace of transnational organized crime, piracy, and the insidious impacts of climate change on conflict, these challenges recognize no borders. They are hydra-headed, resilient, and demand a response that is equally dynamic, unified, and strategic. The choice of the theme of this summit, combating contemporary threats to regional peace and security in Africa, the role of defense collaboration, is both timely and pertinent. It captures the urgent need for a united action in addressing the complex and evolving security challenges confronting our continent. Consequently, this gathering offers us a rare opportunity to forge a unified front. It is a platform to harmonize our doctrines, strengthen interoperability, and build enduring trust among our defense institutions. We must therefore seize this opportunity to craft a new architecture of African-led security cooperation. As host nations, Nigeria is deeply committed to the ideals of regional stability and continental defense integration. Our armed forces have consistently contributed to peacekeeping operations, counter-terrorism efforts, and humanitarian missions across Africa. We believe that true security is not achieved in isolation. It is built through shared intelligence, joint training, and coordinated action. Nigeria stands ready to work with our brothers and sisters across the continent to develop frameworks that are proactive, resilient, and responsive to the realities of our time. Distinguished colleagues, the battlefield is evolving. The threats of today are no longer confined to conventional warfare. They are digital, asymmetric, and often invisible. The enemy is within. As Chiefs of Defense Staff and heads of our armed forces, we must lead the charge in modernizing our forces, investing in cyber defense, artificial intelligence, and indigenous military technology, without which it will be difficult for us to achieve our security. The challenges before us are great, but so too is our resolve. Let us rise above division and embrace unity. Let us build a continent where Our people can live free from fear, and where our armed forces are symbols of stability, professionalism, and pride. Let us use this summit to explore how we can build a defense industrial base that is Africa in origin, Africa in design, and Africa in purpose. The Economic Committee of West African States, ECOWAS for short, the African Union's peace and security architecture, and other regional mechanisms have provided a vital foundation. But we must now build upon this foundation with greater resolve. We must be the architects of our own security and destiny. As we deliberate on strategy and policy, let us not forget the brave men and women who serve under our command. Many have paid the ultimate price in defense of our nations. Their courage and sacrifice must inspire us to build institutions that are not only strong, but just and accountable. Before I round down, with the permission of the special guest of honor, in order to honor those whom have paid the supreme price, both in the armed forces and as citizens of Africa, permit me to kindly request that we kindly stand up and observe a minute silence in honor of those that have paid this price. Thank you, sir. To my fellow brothers and colleagues, the Chiefs of Defense Staff from across the African continent, I salute your commitment, your candor, and your courage. Your presence here in Abuja has sent a powerful message that Africa is ready to take ownership of its security narrative. Our deliberations must be frank, robust, and appreciative of our current geostrategic environment. We must therefore rise from the summit with that statement of unity and cooperation. Together, let us stand in defense of Africa. Together, let us secure our future. Viva Africa. I thank you all and wish us a fruitful deliberation. Thank you and God bless you all.
It is both an honor and a duty to address this distinguished gathering of Africa's military leadership at this historic event. Today, we are joined by some of the continent's finest men and women who continue to stand guard to protect Africa's peace and security. This summit is more than meeting. It is a bold statement of our collective commitment to building a safer, stronger, more united Africa. Our continent is facing serious and evolving security threats from terrorism and insurgency to cyber attack and maritime security. These challenges are complex, transnational, and increasingly asymmetric. Tackling them required not just national resilience, but also strong continental cooperation. Today, we take an important step forward. We affirm that Africa's security must be driven by African solutions, African leadership, and African unity. Nigeria has always played a leading role in promoting regional peace and stability. Our armed forces have been actively involved in peacekeeping, counter-terrorism, and humanitarian missions across Africa and beyond. We remain committed to strengthening our defense partnership, both bilateral and multilateral, to support peace, development, and democratic values. This summit reflects our belief that no single country can secure the continent alone. We must work together, sharing intelligence, aligning doctrine, and building trust among defense institutions. The future of warfare is digital, fast-moving, and unpredictable. As defense leaders, we must embrace innovation. We must invest in cyber defense, artificial intelligence, and indigenous military technologies. Africa must not just keep up with global trends. We must take the lead in shaping them. Let this summit serve as a platform for defense industrial collaboration, joint training, and strategic planning. Let us build defense institutions that are agile, accountable, and ready for challenge ahead. Going forward, I strongly advocate for this summit to become a regular event. Let it be institutionalized as an annual platform for strategic dialogue, coordinations, and professional exchange. Let us, from working groups and task forces, to sustain the momentum beyond this gathering. Let us build a continent where peace is permanent and our armed forces stand as a symbol of pride, professionalism, and progress. I must also acknowledge and appreciate the President and the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for his outstanding leadership and continued support to the Armed Forces of Nigeria. I also commend the Chief of Defense Staff, General C.J. Musa, for his exceptional leadership and foresight in organizing this inaugural African Chief of Defense Staff Summit. His commitment to regional cooperation, operational excellence, and continental security has set a new standard in defense diplomacy. The success of this summit is a testament to his professionalism and dedication to unity among African defense institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Ministry of Defense and the Government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I thank you for your presence, your partnership, and your dedication to African security. I wish you all productive and fruitful deliberation. Thank you, and may God bless the African continent.
This inaugural summit of the African Chiefs of Defense Staff, under the theme, Combating Contemporary Threats to Regional Peace and Security in Africa, the Role of Strategic Defense Collaboration, is a logical sequel to Nigerian-led Continental initiative born out of the vision and determination of His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to empower the peace and security intelligence establishments in this country to regionalize their initiatives to benefit the entire continent. This bold foresight has materialized in, among other endeavors, the ongoing transformation of the National Counter-Terrorism Center in Nigeria into an African non-kinetic counter-terrorism center. The efforts to establish the Combined Maritime Task Force for the Gulf of Guinea, which will secure the combined exclusive maritime economic zone to spur the operationalization of the African Continental Free Trade Area, including by securing the maritime trade corridors linking West and Central Africa to the Americas, Asia, and Europe. The Joint Doctrine and Warfare Center, recently inaugurated in Abuja, is a microcosm of the key objectives of this summit. That is, ensuring intelligence sharing, coordinated and interoperable approaches to responses to the myriad insecurity facing the continent. ECOWAS is therefore incredibly delighted and welcomes this groundbreaking summit that will, among other objectives, be discussing border management and regional security, leveraging artificial intelligence for regional security, as well as the cardinal importance of regional cooperation in responding to threats posed by terrorism and violent extremism, banditry, transnational organized crime on land, at sea, and in the skies. And most importantly, the objective to integrate the continent's burgeoning private sector into the security discourse. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, no region in Africa is spared the scourge of terrorism, civil and predatory wars, organized crime, and underdevelopment. The conflict in Eastern DRC impacts the entire Great Lakes region and beyond. The crisis in Central Africa directly impacts West Africa. And the unresolved crisis in Libya and Sudan generate and allow an inflow of terrorists into the Sahel and beyond. The various crises may be local, but they require a coordinated continental response, with the African Union serving as the glue and the ultimate coordinating hub for these endeavors. There is no gainsaying that West Africa, in particular the Sahel sub-region, has emerged as the epicenter of global terrorism, with several analytical surveys indicating that the Sahel accounted for 51% of global terrorism deaths in 2024 alone. In disparate efforts to counter terrorism in the region, some ethnic groups have been collectively and unjustifiably demonized, associating them with terrorist franchises and thus igniting civil wars alongside the fight against terrorism. In the same vein, local communities in the periphery, women and children in particular, have borne the brunt of state retreat and the coercive protection of jihadist forces. In between, the war economy is thriving from illegal mining, forced protection, and illegal taxation. The preponderance of young people under 25 in the continent, instead of being the agents of demographic dividend, are turning into a curse due to state failings and the allure of quick financial dividends being offered by the operators of the war economy. Underlying this phenomena is the explosion of technology, sophisticated autonomous weapon systems, and the pervasive influence of social media. Against this backdrop, ECOWAS continues to manage and repair the fallout between the community and the alliance of the Sahel states, which are decided to withdraw from the ECOWAS community, alongside intensive diplomatic overtures and aimed at reuniting the region. The ECOWAS heads of state and government have taken the strategic decision in the spirit of regional solidarity to safeguard the interests of all community citizens by allowing citizens of the AES to continue to enjoy all the benefits of regional integration project launched some 50 years ago today, including the free movement of persons and the right of abode and the freedom to do trade across the entire region. The Republic of Benin is not free from the terrorist incursion so long as terrorism festers in its northern neighbors. The same can be said of all the other littoral states bordering the Sahel, thanks to porous borders, weak border security, and cross-border ethnic and trade relations knitted together over the centuries. With the interlocking and mutually destructive nature of terrorism and organized crime for the entire region, ECOWAS continues to encourage collaboration on security matters with our brothers and sisters of the Alliance of the Sahelian States, despite probably lingering political differences. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, ECOWAS is acutely aware of the threat of renewed geostrategic and geopolitical processes unfolding in West Africa and beyond that threaten renewed proxy wars akin to the Cold War era, due in part to the acute insecurity facing the continent, and it is determined to avert this scenario. A first step in this direction is our efforts to scale up counter-terrorism efforts. On the directive of the ECOWAS heads of state and government, the organization is in the process of activating a 260,000 rapid deployment counter-terrorism brigade and to provide logistic and financial support to frontline states facing terrorism. While ECOWAS remains firmly committed to raising its 5,000-man brigade under the auspices of the African Peace and Security Architecture, and more particularly the Continental Standby Force, the activation of this rapid deployment force has become a necessity given the asymmetric security dynamics in the region. We are conscious of the fact that this bold initiative requires the necessary financial resources and capabilities to make it a reality. To this end, ECOWAS will be hosting a meeting of the Ministers of Finance and Defense to agree on the concrete funding modalities to raise an annual budget of 2.5 billion toward the activation of the regional counterterrorism force. The meeting of these ministers is taking place this Friday, this coming Friday in Abuja. By this initiative, ECOWAS is also throwing the gauntlet to bilateral and multilateral partners to complement this daring regional initiative. In particular, we hope that this summit will, through the African Union, send a clarion call to the United Nations to redeem the pledge made under United Nations Security Council Resolution 2719 of December 2023 to fund 75% of African-led peace support operations. Besides the counterterrorism effort, ECOWAS is also pursuing the operationalization of its integrated maritime security with the establishment of 3 integrated maritime centers across the region and an international maritime coordinating center in Abidjan, as well as in its strategy on countering transnational organized crime, among others. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, while expressing ECOWAS's deep appreciation to the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Chief of Defense Staff for this groundbreaking and promising initiative, we encourage participants at this summit to crown deliberations with concrete, practical, and innovative recommendations on mechanisms for effective intracontinental collaboration to respond to the hybrid security challenges, the myriad security challenges facing Africa, and to advance our aspirations for the Africa that we want. Many thanks for your attention and wishing all of us fruitful deliberations. Thank you very much.
Qui nous a fait l'honneur de nous inviter ici. Et j'étais là il y a quelques jours et Monsieur le vice-président de la République fédérale du Nigeria, qui représente le commandant en chef des forces armées du Niger. Tout ce monde est là et je crois que c'est la première fois que les chefs d'état-major de tout le continent se réunissent. Ça veut dire qu'il y a un sujet important. L'importance de ce sujet, c'est de combattre partout où il y a des guerres, quelle que soit la puissance de nos pays, aller de l'avant.
It's a great honor for me to be part of this very timely, very special, and indeed historic event of the coming together of the African defense chiefs here in Abuja, Nigeria. For those of us who have lived through pre- and post-independence of African nations, this event conjures emotion as well as nostalgia. In this regard, we recall vividly how in the late 50s, the late President Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana articulated his vision of an African collective security system through the creation of an African High Command. African High Command is the highest form of strategic defense cooperation in the continent, were it to have been established. Nkrumah's vision was further developed here in Nigeria, precisely in Lagos, in 1964 at the Organization of African Unity Council of Ministers meeting, where the creation of an African High Command was high on its agenda. I draw attention to this vision, not just because of nostalgia, because as the saying goes, you can't know where you are going unless you know where you are coming from. The translation of that vision, however, into concrete reality has eluded us in the continent. This is largely due to the fact that we have to first secure our respective countries before we can then, in the concentric circles of defense policy, secure our respective regions as we strive to secure our continent. It's therefore very symbolic that Nigeria is hosting this conference of African defense chiefs today, the very first of its kind in 2025, some 61 years on. May I therefore congratulate Mr. President, His Excellency, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, for facilitating this crucial African summit. Indeed, securing Nigeria has made it possible for the country to be at the forefront of securing West Africa. We're all aware of the creation of ECOWAS and its defense instrument ECOMOG. Joined by Ghana and other member states of ECOWAS, ECOMOG was a trailblazer in the security and defense of the sub-region of West Africa. And through the instrumentality of ECOMOG, the Nigerian armed forces have made tremendous impact on the region and continue to do so. I therefore salute our chief hosts of this event, General Christopher Musa, and all the service chiefs for their focus and dedication to the peace and security of the most populous sub-region in Africa, and for their foresight in convening this inaugural African Chiefs of Defense Summit. The theme of the summit, Combating Contemporary Threats to Regional Peace and Security in Africa, the role of strategic defense collaboration, resonates strongly with many African scholars, security experts, and policymakers alike. Neither has there been lack of practical steps to combat insecurity in Africa through collective approach. The African Peace and Security Architecture and a supportive standby force have been created under the auspices of the African Union, and that African standby force was actually supposed to have become operational by 2015. The African Union Agenda 2063 emphasized silencing the guns by the year 2020, which has passed, and now shifted to 2030. Still, the guns are still blazing, as Sudan, South Sudan, the Sahel, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Southern Africa continue to witness violent conflict. According to some research work done by the African Research Network for Regional and Global Governance, Innovation, with headquarters in Savannah Center for Diplomacy, Democracy and Development here in Abuja, there are now over 1,000 insurgency groups in Africa, and the number keeps rising. And the majority of our Regional Economic Commission are actually dealing with banditry and terrorism and other forms of insurgency. So regional economic communities, was supposed to be primarily about economic integration, has to, of course, devote a lot of its attention to issues of dealing with banditry, terrorism, and insurgency. Let me conclude by expressing the strongest conviction that Africa's collective security can only be enhanced with active, practical, and proactive collaboration at the regional and continental levels. There must be synergy in military cooperation, promotion of common training, promotion of common doctrinal concept, sharing of intelligence, the interoperability of armaments, but also capacity building, particularly in airlifting, all of which are essential for operationalization of the African standby force. We must also upgrade and strengthen our defense industries and own our technologies in order to avoid control from external forces. Finally, this summit, this historic summit, the very first of its kind, of African defense chiefs, should not yet be another talk shop. We must strive at concrete and realistic solutions to combat old as well as new threats to peace and security in Africa. Africa must design, own, and build a security architecture that guarantees our sovereignties and guarantees human security in all of its dimensions.
It is my great pleasure to be part of this auspicious gathering of the 2025 African Chiefs of Defense Staff Summit. This year's theme couldn't be timelier. Contemporary threats to peace and security directly affect not only the stability of our nations, but also the sustainability of vital resources, which remain the backbone of our economic growth. Therefore, this gathering is a strategic avenue to strengthen military chiefs of defense staff, support and collaboration across the continent, and to develop strategic security architecture that are fit for purpose and in line with our continental aspirations for growth, development, and security of lives and property. Security forms a key pillar of the energy business and therefore plays a very important and strategic role in achieving our national, regional, continental energy security goal. I'm speaking as the head of the largest national oil company on the continent, the NNPC Limited. We have seen the benefits of the collaboration within the security space with significant improvements in our operating environment. The dilapidating impact of crude theft, low pipeline availability, and attacks are issues that have becoming stories of the past for us. And this has come from the immense and intentional efforts of our government security and intelligence agencies across the nation, and in particular within the Niger Delta. Today, I can proudly report to you all that our pipelines and terminal receipts of crude oil that was somewhere as low as 20-30% some periods back, we are attaining close to 100% due to the support of the security forces and the intelligence agencies. Again, this achievement would not have been possible without the professionalism, the discipline, the collaborative spirit of our defense and security institutions. We at NNPC Limited hold this partnership in the highest regard. We also know that crude theft and its attendant illegal activities are by no means a purely localized occurrence. Rather, these operations involve sophisticated international syndicates that take advantage of gaps within the states, national, regional, and continental security architecture to conduct their illicit activities. It is therefore imperative that forums such as these are encouraged with a view to strengthen strategic, tactical, and operational activities within the continent. Africa must take its destiny into its hands and chart a collective way forward that meets the goals and aspirations of our people. As stakeholders within the energy industry, and in light of growing geopolitical tension around the world, NNPC Limited wishes to restate our commitment to supporting the effort of the various security agencies and intelligence agencies, and willingness to collaborate and cooperate with the military and intelligence agencies. This support and collaboration have been demonstrated, as mentioned earlier, with our successes in industry-wide security architecture, here in Nigeria, which has greatly reduced the incidence of sabotage, vandalism, crude theft, illegal refineries, illegal bunkering, and piracy. We envision, by virtue of this gathering and the initiatives to be developed, an expanded architecture that takes into account the activities on a regional and continental level, with all the enabling tools, policies, and technologies to allow seamless synergies and collaboration across borders. So, as this summit deliberates in deepening strategic defense collaboration across Africa, let me assure you that the oil and gas sector in Nigeria stands ready to complement this effort, as we eagerly articulate the benefits to be accrued for the ultimate upliftment of all the stakeholders as citizenry across our borders. Together, we can safeguard Africa's resources, ladies and gentlemen. We can reinforce the peace and create an enabling environment for prosperity of our people. Do accept assurance of our highest regard on behalf of NNPC Limited and the Nigerian industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
On behalf of Senate, on behalf of Council and the entire community of the Premier University, University of Ibadan, I extend our warmest felicitations and most sincere goodwill to the organizers and participants of this landmark inaugural African Defense Chiefs of Staff Summit. The convening of this summit under the timely theme, Combating Contemporary Threats to Regional Peace and Security in Africa, the role of strategic defense collaboration is not only commendable, but very essential. It represents a profound and collective commitment to confronting the complex security challenges that test the resilience of our beloved continent, from violent extremism to transnational terrorism, to cyber threats, maritime insecurity, and destabilizing impact of climate change. While the mandate of our armed forces is to provide a robust security architecture that is necessary for any nation to thrive, the role of the academy is to provide the intellectual foundation upon which lasting peace and sustainable development are built. The University of Ibadan, as a leading center for scholarly inquiry, recognizes that these contemporary threats are multifaceted. They cannot be defeated by forces of arms alone. They require force of intellect, deep analysis, evidence-based strategy, and nuanced understanding of their root causes. It is at this crucial intersection of defense and academia that our relevance to your crucial deliberation lies. Through our institutes, such as the Institute for Peace and Strategic Studies, the TEDFund Center of Excellence in Security Management, and departments across our universities, we are dedicated to researching these very issues. We are committed to training the next generation of strategic thinkers, policy analysts, and leaders who will populate the defense and security sectors, equipping them just with the technical knowledge, but also with deep commitment to African solutions for African problems. Therefore, we view this summit not merely as a military gathering, but as a vital strategic think tank. We urge you to see the academia as a natural and indispensable partner in this endeavor. We offer our research capabilities, our analytical resources, and our neutral grounds for dialogue and simulation to support the vital work that you do. We are confident that the collaborations that is forged and the strategies that will be articulated in this hall over the coming days will significantly advance the cause of peace and security across Africa. Your work ensures the stability that allows our institution to flourish. And in turn, we pledge to provide the knowledge and innovation that can make your mission more effective and more enduring. The journey towards a peaceful and secure Africa is arduous, but it is not insurmountable, as has been said earlier. This inaugural summit, under the bold leadership of Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, marks a significant stride forward. By prioritizing strategic defense collaboration, you are acknowledging that our collective security is indivisible. The threats we face demand a unified African response that is characterized by shared purpose, integrated action, and particularly mutual trust. Let this summit be a catalyst for concrete, actionable framework. Let it forge bonds of cooperation stronger than the forces seeking to divide us. Let us harness the collective might, the collective wisdom and innovations of African defense establishments for the singular goal of securing our people and unlocking our continent's boundless potential. The University of Ibadan commends your commitment and stands ready to partner with you in this noble cause. We sincerely wish you a fruitful deliberation over the coming days.
I would like to take this opportunity to highlight the legacy that General Musa is establishing here in Nigeria as a result of his championing the Invictus movement and developing sports recovery on behalf of his troops. We recognize and acknowledge the gravitas of this event, proven by the concentration of so many senior figures, decision makers, and leaders who have traveled so far to be here today. My name is David Wiseman. I served as an infantry officer in the British Army and had the honor of commanding soldiers in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Unfortunately, my career was cut short after I was shot in the chest during a firefight with the Taliban in 2009. I carry the round in my chest today. It's rattling around in there somewhere. Engaging in sport and adventurous challenge was key to my own recovery. Post-injury, I successfully climbed some of the world's highest mountains and swam competitively at an international level. These experiences taught me the power of sport as a catalyst for successful rehabilitation, in rediscovering passion for living after life-changing injuries, in realizing potential to do more, to move into a career after the military, and in creating a new identity that wasn't bound to or defined by wounds, limitations, or the scarring experiences that I'm sure many of us in this room share. Since leaving the army, I have dedicated my life to helping others achieve this success. I now serve on the senior leadership team of the Invictus Games Foundation. So what is this Invictus movement? The Invictus movement started in 2014 with the inaugural Invictus Games in London, started by Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, who continues to lead the movement today. The Invictus Games has been repeated every 2 years in cities around the world, with hundreds of injured personnel gathering from 25 nations to compete across a range of adaptive sports. It's an incredible public spectacle, with world leaders supporting in the stands alongside competitors, friends, and families, plus tens of thousands from the general public, all whilst being broadcast to millions around the world. The Invictus Games are yet to be held in Africa. It is our genuine hope that they will do someday soon. Between and beyond the Games, the Invictus Games Foundation works hard as the world's leading NGO, supporting wounded, injured and sick service personnel and veterans through sport and adventurous challenge. As proven by my presence here today and by the incredible work that's taking place here in Nigeria, we operate at the political level to catalyse systemic change across a growing international movement, focusing on where the need is great, whilst maintaining support for the community we have built over the past decade. The establishment of sports recovery is not just the right thing to do, based on the enhanced recovery and rehabilitation outcomes that result from engaging in sports recovery activity. It is also a clear demonstration that leaders care for their troops. Empathy for troops, especially those who become injured, is key to the moral component of fighting power. A soldier who feels that he will be looked after and respected should he become injured is easier to recruit, easier to retain, and will work and will fight harder for his commanders. Over his tenure, and in partnership with the Invictus Games Foundation and delivery partner Africa Unconquered, General Musa has championed the development of sports recovery here in Nigeria. A series of events that captured the world's attention, initially when Nigerian service personnel secured multiple medals at 2 Invictus Games. Secondly, when Harry and Meghan, Duke and Duchess of Sussex, visited Nigeria just last year to spend time with and honour the armed forces community. And most recently, when General Musa and the Right Honourable Mr. Abu Bakr broke ground on the new Armed Forces Invictus Centre to support the rehabilitation of wounded personnel here in Abuja. General Musa is building a tremendous legacy for his time as CDS and setting conditions for future leaders to build upon it. It has been a personal and professional highlight in my career to see the great work that has taken place here in Nigeria. But the work is not complete. Concerning the Invictus movement, Nigeria stands alone on the continent of Africa. And I hope that here, this week, we can change that. When we think about the need, I drew inspiration from Professor Gambari's speech earlier. 1,000 insurgent groups here on the continent of Africa. And he set the challenge that this should not be a talking shop. Well, I offer you, ladies and gentlemen, something very practical that we can take away from this week. My colleague and fellow member of the senior leadership team, Helen Doyley, and I invite you, the most powerful military men on the continent of Africa, drawing from the spirit and ethos of this conference, I stand here with an offer of friendship and collaboration, an open invitation for every African nation to join the Invictus movement. We ask for nothing in return, just a simple pledge to commit to supporting men and women in uniform by establishing and developing sports recovery. The call to action is for the distinguished leaders gathered here is to find me or Helen this week and express your nation's interest in joining the Invictus movement. Consider this perhaps the first stage in building upon Nigeria's example, the first step to sending a national team to the Invictus Games and to be celebrated the world over. But deeper than this, it's an opportunity to be a champion of sports recovery, a champion for the welfare of your men and women in uniform, whom it is always an honour for true leaders to serve. Finally, I promise, finally. And this is my second promise. I made you that first one right at the start. This is my second promise. I promise you, reference that bullet that's still in my chest. If you come and talk to me about the Invictus movement anytime this week, I will show you the X-ray and I will let you into the secret whether or not I set off airport security when I go through the gates.
Every one of you is born of a woman, unless you want to challenge that. But secondly, the burden on which women face, whether they lose their husband's ultimate sacrifice in conflict, or that they are the ones that lose their lives, they are the ones that lose their children, they bear the greatest brunt of all the conflicts that we have today in the world. And so for them, I think they deserve their place here today and recognition. Last but not least, in his 7 to 10 minutes, David Wiseman, thank you for talking to us about the day after. Often that is forgotten, that those that manage to go home also have to live a life and heal and be part very much of the societies that they left to serve. And so thank you for reminding us. Excellencies, Excellence, it is an honor to join you for this first ever African Chiefs of Defense Staff Summit. And I'd like to thank General Musa and the government of Nigeria for your warm invitation and your welcome to the United Nations. I speak as a proud African woman and as someone who has seen the cost of insecurity in families and communities across our continent, from Boko Haram in Maiduguri to the RSF in Sudan and to the conflict in Ethiopia and more recently in Gaza. These gatherings mark the birth, this one in particular, marks the birth of a new era in African security cooperation at such a critical moment. It is the first of its kind to represent the boots on the ground, a rare opportunity to connect their realities with the policy decisions that shape our continent's security. Nearly 1 in every 5 people on Earth call Africa home. Each one deserves a life in safety and in dignity. And that means protecting civilians, respecting borders, and standing by the principles of international law and the UN Charter. Above all, it calls for a united approach against our common threats. We know that Africa is at the epicenter of global terrorism deaths, and today Professor Gambari has told us just how many of those insurgency groups are on the continent. Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State affiliates coordinate across our continent, and the attacks in West Africa coastal countries surging 250% in 2 years. Violent extremism, once thought to be history, is back again in the Lake Chad Basin and in Somalia and beyond. By last year's end, over 14,000 schools were closed in the Central Sahel due to the conflict. Aside from the children who are forcibly recruited, we see young people who are drawn by fear, by money, by a false promise of belonging. And when young people see no path to education or to justice and a future, extremist propaganda finds an audience, and we risk losing an entire generation. In this new era of technology, where it should be advancing as a human endeavor, these groups are using new technologies like unmanned aerial systems and improvised explosive devices to wreak havoc. We cannot afford to be bystanders. Africa must take ownership, must be proactive, and shape how these tools will be used. Cyberspace today is now a battle space. Elections are manipulated, institutions undermined, lies are spread until neighbor turns against neighbor. And we have seen this before. Once it was a radio carrying messages that ignited genocide. Today it is social media amplifying hate at terrifying speed. Artificial intelligence is already transforming the landscape of security. Today we do have AI tools that are helping countries suffering from conflict and insecurity. Identifying food insecurity, predicting displacement caused by climate shocks, even detecting and clearing landmines. Soon they could help us to spot patterns of unrest before violence erupts. Sadly, the same technology that offers solutions also carries profound risks. AI's expansion into security systems raises fundamental questions about human rights, dignity, and the rule of law, from autonomous border surveillance to predictive policing. It creates fertile ground for misunderstanding, miscalculation, and mistakes. AI-enabled cyber attacks could cripple entire infrastructure and paralyze essential services. Algorithms today are already being used to make life or death decisions. And to turn to another challenge, climate change. It is also reshaping the geography of security across our continent, fueling food scarcity, endangering our people, extreme heat, sea level rise, shifting rainfall patterns are driving displacement, exacerbating resource competition, and fueling instability. Shrinking water levels in the Lake Chad Basin have displaced over 3 million people. I saw this firsthand when I was Minister of Environment. The evidence is overwhelming, and it is destabilizing our world. The UN Security Council has acknowledged that climate change is a threat multiplier that fuels conflict, displaces populations, and undermines state stability. The International Court of Justice recently recognized climate change as an urgent and existential threat to our world. The IPCC has left no room of doubt. Africa is one of the most exposed regions in the world to climate change. The rippling effect is rising displacement and migration, putting food systems and infrastructure under severe pressure and creating more opportunities for instability and exploitation. The result speaks volumes. Climate change is a clear and present danger to peace. Our seas are also becoming a new frontline. Organized crime on our waters is feeding violence on our land. In the Gulf of Guinea, piracy, illicit trade are funding terrorism. In the Red Sea, maritime insecurity is undermining stability far beyond the shoreline. Excellencies, Excellence, each of these threats all share one characteristic. They are transnational. Our response must be that too. When we act in isolation, we hand our adversaries their greatest advantage, our division. Regional cooperation is the linchpin of African security and defense, but we also know that this is easier said than done. Defense collaboration is not simple. We are talking about 54 countries, each with their own policies, their histories, their priorities, and their difficulties. This makes it all the more remarkable that though the complexity and diversity, African forces find ways to act together, and you have. From the African Union's peace support operations to the Algeria African Center for Study and Research on Terrorism, Cape Verde's Center for Security and Transnational Organized Crime, and Cameroon's International School for Security Forces, amongst many. The African Union deploys peace support operations where others can and will not. The multinational Joint Task Force in the Lake Chad Basin coordinates regional efforts against Boko Haram. ECOWAS in West Africa and IGAD in the Horn are coordinating troops, logistics, and political engagement. The G5 Sahel and the Accra Initiative have also played key roles. But too often, such initiatives are being held back by mistrust, tensions, gaps, and in some cases, sadly, undermined by the international community. Trust is not built overnight, but without it, every effort to strengthen our partnerships and our response in defense of our people will fall short. Collaboration must be targeted and intentional, and I see 3 opportunities where our unity can tip the balance. First is resources. Pooling our budgets for joint responses makes us stronger than scattering the spending. We proved this when Nigeria helped in the Gambia and Liberia. We must find that spirit again. At the same time, we need to think bigger about financing. National security budgets must be complemented by international support. We can leverage the prevention components of other budgets to reinforce stability and reduce the costs of conflict before they spiral. Cutting off illicit financing is part of this battlefront. Yaba's anti-money laundering work and the cooperation through the multi-joint task force and the Lake Chad Basin Commission are vital to choke off the money flows that sustain conflict from outside of the continent. Second, intelligence and innovation. We need the right tools and mapping in place to plan and to drive strategy at scale. Reinforcing the Accra Initiative, the ECOWAS Standby Force, and giving the Joint Threat Fusion and Analysis Cell the support it needs to ensure data become decisions. The same applies at sea, joint patrols that make the Yaoundé architecture real protection for people and infrastructure. And innovation must be part of our defense. Collaborating on AI from drones to cyber tools and building on African Union's AI strategy can help us to set common standards to keep technology serving people. And third, people and partnerships. Our continent is full of military and academic centers of excellence. We need to harness this strategy and this training capacity, use it more efficiently, and deploy it where it is most needed. And we must unite the public and the private sectors. Soldiers learning side by side with engineers, technicians, innovators, regular fora with business to share cutting-edge knowledge. This is how Africa's own labs and companies can power our security future. In turn, the private sector benefits from access to credit to grow their companies and to feed their bottom line. It creates an enabling environment for young people to strive for their futures. Excellencies, Excellence, history has shown that African military cooperation and collaboration has already proven itself on the world stage. 3 decades ago, Ghana and Nigeria pioneered ECOMOG in Liberia when regional interventions were untested. African military diplomacy stepped up into breach when others hesitated. From those West African origins and beyond, Rwanda transformed from recovery to becoming the #2 global contributor for peacekeeping forces. Today, 9 of the world's top 15 contributors of UN peacekeeping are African nations, African troops, all active in Somalia, in CAR, and the DRC. So we are not only recipients of support from the international community, we are contributors of that support. And without African leadership, there would be no effective peacekeeping. Now, peacekeeping is entering a new era. However, this new era is facing headwinds. Politically, the UN Security Council is deadlocked, and political support is eroding. Meanwhile, external actors are pursuing their own agendas on African soil, complicating and exacerbating our security landscape. Financially, missions are now underfunded. This makes Resolution 2719 of Somalia so vital. With this resolution, and the UN Security Council acknowledged a simple truth. African crises demand African leadership, backed by global financial support for African solutions to succeed. This era, a new era of peacekeeping, also brings with it an opportunity for a new face. That face has to be younger, more diverse in people and skills that will work with communities on the front and the day after. And that includes, Excellencies, women. On the day after, women are the anchors of recovering and helping to rebuild trust, to heal communities long after the guns fall silent. The day after also demands something else from us as military leaders: justice and accountability. They matter the day after. Everyone deserves their day in court. Even accused terrorists, as difficult as this may be able to accept, they must face justice in a court of law. And let us perhaps remind ourselves that terrorists are not born. They are our children. They are the young people who have gone astray, badly astray. And it is our duty to bring them back out from the cold into building their nations and not destroying them. These are some of the issues that international community will raise, and as leaders, you will have to be in a position that you can defend. Excellencies, let us be reminded why we need peace for development. Without it, neither the Sustainable Development Goals nor Agenda 2063 can be achieved. Farmers cannot farm without security. Energy systems cannot be built without being protected. Every school, every hospital depends on security. And we cannot have our children, our girls, in fear of kidnapping. Without security, development is impossible. Without development, security cannot hold, and lasting peace must be built upon both. Both are the foundation of our agendas 2030 and Africa's vision for Agenda 2063. They connect the dots between prosperity, good governance, and peace. Food security, education, health, decent work, social protection, green technology, and resilience, justice and institutions, and people must be able to trust in. We know that every additional year of schooling reduces the likelihood of a young person joining armed groups by up to 13%. This evidence begs the question: How do we invest in peace? Is it just military spending? Is it development spending? Is it both? That is the discussion that we will need to have in this room and beyond. And it means tackling root causes. It means democracy that is robust and representative, not on constitutional changes dressed up as solutions. While this might seem legitimate in many eyes, in the longer term, democracy and by extension security will be weakened. Instead, strong institutions underpinned by strong democracies and strong security apparatus are the safeguard against instability. Let's give some deep thought to the resources that we are allocating to achieve stability. Last year, the world spent $2.7 trillion on the military, more than at any point in the history of the world. Yet insecurity has not diminished. In fact, conflicts are spreading, not shrinking. At the same time, the world fell short by $4 trillion each year for just basic development needs. $4 trillion missing for school, for jobs, for clinics. That imbalance raises a clear question. What kind of spending truly delivers the peace you are willing to fight to protect? This is at the heart of the African Union's call to silence the guns, because silencing the guns is not just about weapons laid down. It is about investing in people, tackling root causes, and creating societies where stability is built on justice, opportunity, and trust. Success will only be possible if we create the fiscal space for investing in people and stability. And so we do need in Africa a fairer chance and a fairer finance, debt relief, affordable credit, and a global system that works for Africa is what we need today. We need a global financial architecture that reflects today's realities. And we need African countries strong, but more importantly, united in calling for these changes. Our chiefs, excellencies, friends, strategic defense collaboration is not a slogan. It is the bridge between the threats that we face today and the peace that we promise tomorrow. I've seen the challenge, I know you have. I've also seen what's possible when we find common ground. The outcome of this week must be heard beyond this room. It must be carried into every international forum where decisions on defense are being made on our behalf. That's how we will shape Africa's security on Africa's terms. But reshaping security also means changing mindsets. We must see women not only as victims of war, but as partners in peace. And just as women are the bedrock of peace in our homes, they must be a part of the search for peace on the war front. This is not about winning wars, it is about winning peace, and is about doing it together. As Nelson Mandela Madiba once said, I dream of the realization of the unity of Africa, whereby its leaders combine in their efforts to solve the problems of this continent. That dream calls on us to act with resolve, with courage, with trust, and a shared purpose to safeguard the future of Africa, the future of Africans that we want. I thank you.
The reality of our geography has made us more than kith and kin. We are bound as a family, sharing not just borders, but destiny. And in this family, defense is the first expression of love each member can promise the other. This gathering is therefore not just a convergence of uniforms and titles. It is a summoning of Africa's guardians to the village choir of ideas. There has never been a time when our collective defense invited us so urgently to sit together and reason together. This summit, the first of its kind, will not have come at a better time. I am therefore deeply honored to welcome each of you to Abuja, the heart of Nigeria and the home of Africa's endless possibilities. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the enormity of threats across our continent compels us to pause and reflect. From the deserts where insurgency festers, to the high seas where piracy prowls, from the silent corridors of cybercrime to the ruthless networks of transnational criminals, none of these tragedies respect borders, and neither should our response. What is true of our challenges must also be true of our resolve. We cannot neutralize these threats in isolation. This is the moment to reassess our military objectives in the collective aspirations to make Africa safe. It is time to forge a new doctrine of continental defense, one rooted in trust, shared intelligence, and coordinated strategy. Nigeria's promise has always been simple and firm: to be a good neighbor and a brother's keeper in the struggle for peace. Our armed forces have stood shoulder to shoulder with our neighbors and far beyond in peacekeeping missions, counter-terrorism operations, and humanitarian endeavors. We hold no illusion. Security is the foundation upon which the edifice of progress must stand. That is why we must use this summit not merely as a meeting, but as a covenant to deepen cooperation through joint training, harmonized doctrines, and interoperable systems. For this to endure, we must build a framework where our defense institutions speak with one voice and act with one purpose. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the nature of warfare has evolved. The threats of today are asymmetric, digital, and often invisible. Our response must not be less dynamic. We must invest in cyber defense, artificial intelligence, and indigenous military innovation. Africa cannot remain merely a consumer of technology. We must be creators, innovators, and owners of the tools that secure our tomorrow. I therefore urge this summit to explore avenues for defense industrial collaboration, research partnerships, and African-led solutions to African security challenges. In this journey, I call upon the organized private sector to be our ally, to invest in the future of defense as an investment in the survival of nations. Our struggles for peace have not come without heroes and heroines. Across battlefields known and unknown, valiant men and women of our armed forces have laid down their lives in defense of their nations. Their sacrifice is the eternal price of peace, and the least we can do is honor them by ensuring their legacy is enshrined in the institutions we build, the values we uphold, and the partnerships we forge. So this summit must not dissolve with the applause of its closing session. I propose the establishment of a permanent African Chiefs of Defense Staff Forum, a platform for continuous dialogue, strategic foresight, and operational coordination. Let us institutionalize this spirit of unity and make it the cornerstone of Africa's security architecture. The future of Africa depends on the choices we make today. Let us rise above division and embrace cooperation. Let us imagine and build an Africa where peace is not the exception but the norm, where the language of war gives way to the grammar of progress, and where the dignity of our people is shielded by our collective resolve. Finally, I reserve for special recognition and in deference to my sister, Ms. Amina J. Mohammed, I wish to recognize and appreciate Field Marshal Ogogo Lillian Musa. You know, the wives of our service chiefs, our army officers are a step above their husbands. Then General Gwabin Musa is a general, so I will address her as Field Marshal Ogogo Lillian Musa. We appreciate you. We thank you most sincerely with your team for holding the home port. You are the fulcrum on which our society rests. We are mightily proud of you, and we appreciate your efforts. On behalf of the government and people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I welcome you once again to Abuja. May your deliberations be fruitful, your partnerships enduring, and your vision clear and focused.
We're very glad to see this happen. Amazing initiative. Now, what this does for the industry and for national security in the country and across the region is that it allows all the stakeholders who are active in the field that's law enforcement and military and paramilitary, to come together and share their collective experiences, information about what they are facing in their individual countries, what are the threats doing, generally get together, compare notes, and come up with some sort of policy direction or some sort of narrative that everybody now, when they harmonize this, they now decide this is what we should do, this is how we should approach it. If Nigeria does this and Nigeria does that, we will be able to work together in harmony to address these issues. So this is basically a good opportunity for minds to come together and discuss the problems.
In Africa, could it be challenges that is our challenge? Is it challenges that we are short of, or the implementation?
So the challenges are the problems.
Are we short of strategies, or we have bottlenecks in implementation?
We have strategies. We have very good strategies, and we're building up on implementation. Implementation has not been as good as the strategies are. So what we need now is events like this, so that implementation can be improved upon.
Now tell me, how could firms, companies like you, support the quest for military industrialization in Africa?
Well, we're giving an opportunity for self-sustainability. We're giving Africa the opportunity to own its own capacity to solve its own problems. Our problems are very unique. Our terrain is very unique. If you bring military vehicles from abroad that are used to working in good terrain, they will have challenges in our terrain. So organizations like ours look into these challenges that exist and come up with technical, innovative solutions that are designed specifically for our local environment.
This platform really, like the name says, a summit of Africa's chiefs of defense, and which means summit means the highest, the apex of the decisions in terms of getting the defense solution required to tackle the myriads of insecurity in the continent. It will, in the sense that this is the first of its kind where you have the various defense in Africa coming together in one body. I don't think there have been any other that has come out frontally in this format to help to tackle this. And with what is happening and the endorsement from the African Union and ECOWAS, and the particular push by the man who has convened this summit, which is the Chief of Defense Staff, Federal Republic of Nigeria, General Musa, the zeal he's having to drive it is the zeal that I believe that with the political will of the governments in Africa, this will become a reality. This is the first time, really. I'll tell you why I'm emphasizing that it's the first time, because it's always difficult to get the African chiefs of defense together, except they want to take them outside Africa and they are to be hosted by the foreign countries outside the continent before they will go. But coming here to Abuja, and with the drive that Nigeria is giving, don't forget that Nigeria also gave similar drive to ECOWAS. And that is why today we have a standing ECOWAS Chiefs of Defense Staff forum that is very, very vibrant. And that same drive will be extended towards this particular one to make it far-reaching.
There are calls for indigenous technology called transborder crime. So how could a platform like this support? Though I could see exhibitions of from hardware.
Yeah, it's good. And that is one of the reasons why this exhibition is being incorporated, to be able to showcase what we can do as a continent in terms of looking inward, not depending majorly on Western world, because the biggest problem we have is that the Western world have not truly supported the fight against security in the continent, because they control the weaponry, they control all this, they dictate even the usage. But if we, now that we have taken the bull by the horn to forge a collective partnership, I believe that it will go a long way, because we indigenize the equipment themselves to what we require in the continent. It's a good step that has been taken. And I believe and I pray that all the political leaders in the continent will put force to what has just started to make it reality.